Welcome everybody to our session today on navigating OneDrive, SharePoint, and Microsoft Teams. I feel that this is a session that really helps you to understand where are my files and really kind of where should they be, because we don't always know, where is the best place that I should be placing my information so that I will have access to it, other people will have access to it. And one of the things that we can do is we can actually be we can go to our Microsoft account online and we can access our files directly from there. So we're going to actually go through several different places and ways that we can get to our information, including SharePoint, Microsoft Teams. We can be using File Explorer. We can use our OneDrive app, lots of different ways to access things. Starting here in my Microsoft account, I just went to, office.com, logged into my account. Right away on the home page, I'm going to actually see my files. So across the top will be my recommended files, and then scrolling down, you can see recent files. I can go into shared files. I can go into files that have been saved as a favorite. Just so you can see, you can have quick, easy access directly from here as well. But what I want to start with here today is really going to be talking more on the SharePoint side of things. And a lot of people are using SharePoint for communication, where we can have a SharePoint site where we're going to share a calendar, we're going to put upcoming events on there, we're going to have company news, people can get HR information. We always have that, but a big part of using SharePoint is document libraries. We could navigate to a SharePoint site however it is you navigate to your sites, going to the SharePoint app, or if you have a shortcut. I have a shortcut to a site that I'll open here that was on my browser up at the top in my favorites bar, where I could then, of course, access any of my document libraries. So if you're familiar with SharePoint at all, a document library is where we go to save our files. And the best part about this is that anyone that has rights to that SharePoint site, to that specific area of that SharePoint site, will have rights to the document libraries that are there. So the days of us using a network drive are really dwindling because of because of what they couldn't do and what SharePoint can do. So having things in a SharePoint site is going to be highly recommended if it needs to be shared with others, hence the name SharePoint. So when it comes to using these document libraries, this is where we want to put files that other people will need access to, because we can share a file automatically. We don't have to manually share it. It's shared automatically when they go into the document library. We could share it with people outside of that site as well. So if I had a vendor or somebody outside of my organization that I want to share a file with, I could also do that. So let me just open up a standard document library. I have this one here just called Documents. I also have one called Legal Documents. Both of those contain different types of files. And just so you know, we can have it set up so that only specific people have rights to a document library. So I have this clinic site open right now in SharePoint, and everybody that has rights to this site can get to this standard documents library. But the legal documents, I could have it set up with special permissions to say only these users have rights to that document library. So just so you know, we do have that capability with that, because SharePoint is a pretty strong program. So we do have a lot of permission levels that we can give things. Otherwise, keep in mind, anything you put in the document library is available to everybody that has rights to that site. So just a word of caution sometimes. But when you come into a document library, you're going to have a menu going across the top. This menu allows you to create new files that would be directly saved within this document library, the location of where you're at. We could also upload existing files. So just so you can see from the new, I could create all these different new types of files, or I could create a new folder to save files in. for organizational purposes. But if I have an existing file that I want to bring in, I can drag and drop it right into the document library, which I do quite often, or I can just simply go to upload and I can choose what it is that I want to bring in. So I can navigate on my computer, my flash drive, my network drive, wherever it's located at, and I can automatically bring in a file. So just so you could see, I'll go into Excel. And if I want to bring in an Excel file, let's say I want to bring in this PowerPoint presentation, all I have to do is locate the file, select it, and it will automatically add it to this document library so that everybody will be able to access it. Along with that, though, just so you're aware of this, a file can be created and saved directly within an application. So if I want a file that, let's say I want a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case would be, I could go directly to that application, create the workbook or whatever the file is, and have it saved to a network or saved to a SharePoint document library. Let me just kind of show you that. If I bring over Excel, and let's say that I start with a blank workbook. If I'm in this blank workbook, I could always go to the top of this workbook, click where it says book 1, and I can choose what I want to name it and where I want to put it. So maybe this is going to be for 2025 sales data. And right now it's defaulting to my OneDrive, which is great if it's just a file that I'm going to be using on my own. But if I want this to go to SharePoint, I can navigate to SharePoint. I'm going to click on more options. It takes me to my Save As dialog box. And under my quick access, these are things that I said I wanted in my quick access. So these document libraries, here's that clinic, that legal documents one. Otherwise, I could go to this clinic. I have all these different shortcuts. But if I wanted to physically navigate to a different location, I could simply navigate to wherever I want to go. So let's say that I want to put it in this document library in the accounting department, and I want it to go to accounts payable. I'm going to click the folder for accounts payable. So I've got this sales data. I'm going to fix my spelling of that here real quick. And I'm just going to click save. So here's where it's going to end up going. So just so you can see, I'm going to show you that again when I get into Microsoft Teams, because that was actually a Teams channels document library, just so you're aware. So anyway, I'm going to just close it for right now. So I could go to an application and automatically work with a document library there. But a couple of other things that I want to mention going across the top is one of the things that people say to me a lot is, it's really hard to get to the document library. Well, there's easier ways to access your document libraries. I don't always have to go into the SharePoint site, especially if it's part of my intranet. I don't have to go to the intranet, go to my department site, then click on the document library. Everything has a URL at the top. So I have this saved, this clinic legal documents as a shortcut on my favorites bar. So every time I want to go into it, I click on it from my favorites bar, it will automatically navigate me to that document library. So you can have shortcuts here. Because it's a web address, a URL, you can also put it as a shortcut anywhere you need access to it. So we can always find easier ways. But one of the ways that I use the most is add shortcut to OneDrive. If I choose to add a shortcut to this legal documents, I can click this icon, and what it does is it adds a shortcut to this document library, excuse me, to be available within OneDrive and File Explorer. So when I get to OneDrive, I'll show you how that works. I'll show you it in Teams, and I'll show you it in the OneDrive app, just so you're aware I can use it in multiple places. Now, here's the icon for Pin to Quick Access. So if I want to have this legal documents available in my Quick Access, which is available, as you saw, in Excel, the updated version of Excel, and it's available in other places that you'll see in a minute. This is one way that you could pin this document library to be in that category. We also have export to Excel, which really is just going to export a list of everything that you see in the columns in the document library. But one of the features that I want to mention is over on the right-hand side, I'm going to go to this dot, dot, dot menu. We have the capability, as I mentioned, SharePoint is very strong. In SharePoint document libraries, we can set up what are called alerts. Alerts can be set up to say, like, let's say that I'm actually the person that maintains this legal documents. I'm in charge of it, and I need to make sure if somebody deletes something, somebody adds something new, or they modify something that they didn't create, I want to get a notification. If I set up an alert me, what this is going to do is allow me to give it a name. It's going to automatically email myself, and then the change type, I could say I want to be notified of all changes. I want to be notified. I want to have an alert sent based on any changes, and I want the alert sent immediately. If I choose these or make my choices and then click OK, any changes that happen to documents in this library, I will get an email notification about them, just so you're aware. We can set up an alert for an individual file or the entire document library. If you want to do it for an individual file, go to the menu for a file. So as an example, if I go to this file, ABC Sales, I could go to the menu on the right, the dot, 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 or right click. If I right click or go to that menu, you'll get a pop-up of all these different features, including the alert me. The alert me would be just for that specific file. But while I'm in this menu, I want to talk about some other great features that we have. Some of these are going to be exclusive for SharePoint. Some of these will be available in Teams and in OneDrive. But the first one that I want to talk about is this feature called Automate. Because SharePoint is part of our 365, it is directly connected to everything in 365. We have a built-in workflow with SharePoint that I could send this file for a request for sign off. So if I have maybe my manager and somebody else needs to sign off on this file before I go live with it, I can just simply click request sign off. What this is going to do is use an app, which is part of 365 called Approvals. You may not have known that there is an app called Approvals as part of your 365. We could touch on that in our upcoming 2025 sessions, but basically it wants to know who do I want to notify that they need to review this file and approve or reject it. And I can put in a little message because it's going to go to them via email, but it's also going to notify them in Microsoft Teams. So they get notified in two different places. And so I'm just going to say that I want myself to approve this, just so you could see the flow of this. I'll just say something like, please review this file, blah, blah, blah. I would put in what I want for my message for them. Then I'm going to click Run Flow at the bottom of this pane of the window. That's going to automatically notify the person. So just so you can see, I did get notified. And by the way, I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. Let me show my Outlook here, because remember when I set up those alerts? Here's those alerts. So when I said I wanted to have an alert me, here's an alert. So SharePoint Online. And then I also got a notification saying you have successfully created an alert on this clinic site for this legal documents. So I'm getting these notifications. And in a second, it's also going to notify me with the fact that I need to review that file. It's taking a second for that to come in, but that's okay. I'll show it to you in Microsoft Teams because I get it in multiple places. If I go to my activities, I have a new activity notification. So let me jump in there and you can see that it says Jolynn sent a request. It's going to open up the hierarchy of the notification. And by the way, just so you're aware of this, back in the document library, it shows that this has a sign-off status of pending. So it knows that it hasn't been approved or rejected yet. just so you're that it does that. So we have this full integration going back and forth in between other 365 apps in our document libraries. So here it's asking me to go to this link, review the file, and then I can come down to the bottom. I can add in a comment. You are good to go. I can't type today. You are good to go. And I can click approve. That's going to, of course, send a notification back to the person that requested it. And we have this approval status. So this actually changed to the approval app here in Teams, and I can see that that was approved. So anyway, let me come back to Teams here in a minute. Back into my SharePoint document library, I'm going to right click on this file again. And one of the features that I wanted to mention, besides being able to delete and rename those kind of things, is this feature called version history. This to me is one of the best features that we have with cloud-based files. So we can use this in OneDrive and in SharePoint document libraries, and we can use it in Teams files as well. But back in the days of network drives, if I accidentally deleted a file or somebody made changes and I need to go back 2 days or whatever on that file, I would have to bribe IT to go get it off the backup. We don't have that situation here in SharePoint or OneDrive. If I click version history, I'm going to see a list of all the past versions of this specific file. So if I wanted to go back to a previous one, I can click on the modified date. It will automatically open that file, that version of that file, and I could restore it to be the most current version, or every time I open it and make changes, it's going to keep track of these different version histories, just so you know that it does that. Great feature. I don't have to be in the document library, by the way, to do that version history. I could be in the application. So I could be in the Excel desktop version and get my version history from the file menu as well. Always multiple places when we're working with Microsoft apps. But I'm going to go right click on this again, because another feature that I want to mention, I'm going to go to the more category down here at the bottom, and I'm going to do a feature called checkout. Let's say that I have this workbook that I need to make some changes to the background, some formulas, and maybe some named ranges and different things. I'm going to click checkout. What this is going to do is have this locked so that people can't open and make changes to the file. You can see next to the name of the file, it has this red circle. That lets people know when they see this file that it is checked out. So that now if I go into that file and I make my changes to it, I can come back and check it back in so that it goes live again for everybody else to be using. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in some new data, just so you can see I can, make all my changes and everything. It automatically is saving the changes as I make them because it's on a cloud. I'm just going to close the file when I'm done, and I'm going to check the file back in. How I do that is I can just hesitate on the name of the file again. It gives me a little menu, and right from here I can click check in. So super easy, just hesitating on a file, we get information about the file. I can type a comment in, and I could say I updated info for 2025. So I can be putting in, sorry, I lost my little window here. Let me jump back in there. Updated for 2025. Oops, I'll just keep that. I'm going to click check in just so you can see. Then if I go back into that version history again, it's going to show that version of what I just changed. And in the column on the right for the comments, it shows the comment that I put in when I checked it back in, just so you can see these columns. So if I needed to revert back to an older one, I still could go back to it. And it's still going to keep the one that I had made the changes to. So great way to really kind of get back to something that you had previously been using. So awesome feature. But as you can see, when you're hesitating on a file or selected on a file, so it's got this little circle here that I could select multiple items. What it's doing when you're selected on a file is it changes the menu across the top to be related to the file you're clicked on. Just so you can see, if I uncheck it, it changes the menu back to being related to the document library. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to check this file again so that you can see some of the features that I have. I could open it, and open means I want to open it in the browser, or I want to open it in the desktop app. I could share this file, and we have a lot of different ways we can share a file. I could hesitate on the name and just click this icon for share. But basically what sharing means is, you know how I said everybody has access to this file that is a part of the SharePoint site? If I wanted to share this with somebody outside of that, I could bring up this window, go to the top right, click on this pencil. And by the way, we can do this in Teams and OneDrive as well. So a OneDrive file can be shared this exact same way. I can choose if I want them to edit, just be able to view, or they can't download the file to save it to their computer. I could just choose who I want to share this with, type in a message. Then I could, and it's letting me know that person is outside my organization, nice security feature. Type in the message and I could click send to email a link to this person. Or I could just click copy link. If I click copy link, I could then paste it, and anyone that has access to that link will be able to open up that file. Just so you know, you have multiple choices on how you want to share that. But make sure you change your permission levels to match who you're sharing it with, because I don't always want people to be able to edit the file. If you leave the defaults, they will be able to edit and download it to their computer. So anyway, just so you know that that is an option. So we've got these wonderful features available here in SharePoint. So SharePoint document libraries are a great tool to use. These document libraries are going to give you the best and most choices on managing your files. So if you are worried about, I want to make sure that these 3 people have access to this file, always think about, where should it be? Is there a SharePoint document library that they're going to have access to that I should be putting this file in? Okay, but let's do a couple of other things. I want to talk about Microsoft Teams, because when it comes to working in Microsoft Teams, we have a lot of the same capabilities because of the fact that when you are in Microsoft Teams, we're actually in SharePoint. So I'm going to go to Teams, in Teams, and I'm going to go straight into this accounting department team, and I'm at the accounts payable channel. At the top, every one of the channels has a file tab, which is a SharePoint document library. Now, how do we know that? Well, when you look at this list of your folders and your files in that document library, every time a team is created, a SharePoint site related to that team is also created. So just so you're aware of that. So this is a document library. And if you look at the menu going across, it's going to have some of the same similarities that you saw when we were in SharePoint. But something that's going to be different is open in SharePoint. If I click open in SharePoint, it's automatically going to open this document library in the SharePoint site itself. So it launched SharePoint in my internet browser. You can see my navigation on the left-hand side to get into other shared features with this site called Accounting Department. And here's my document library features. So here's all my files. So if I go to this file called org chart data, if I right click on it, I'm going to have all of the same SharePoint capabilities as I did when I was just in SharePoint, because it is SharePoint. So just so you could see, that's how that's set up. But if I go to this left-hand side and click home, just so you can see, it is taking me to the home page of this accounting department SharePoint site. Now, I don't have much out here, but just so you could see that it is truly a SharePoint site. But let me go back into Microsoft Teams, because when I'm looking at this, and you can see this is that new file that I had added a minute ago when I was in Excel, and I said I wanted it to be in the accounts payable of this accounting department. Here's that file. So just so you could see, it automatically went here. So I could use the native application and save things to any of my cloud locations. But anyway, just so you can see, if I right click on a file, I'm not going to get exactly the same things as I did when I was in SharePoint, as of today anyway, just so you're aware. One of the features that you're not going to get is that automate, where I could request the sign off. I'm hoping that's going to be added here, but as of today, we do not have that capability while we're in Teams. If you need that, just open it in SharePoint, not a problem. It's a one click. So just so you can see, you do have the shortcut also for open in SharePoint. But you do have a couple of other things that you're not going to find. The Alert Me. Alert Me is not going to be available unless this is open in SharePoint as well. So like I said, SharePoint gives us the most capabilities of what we can do to manage our files as of today. But if I go to the More category, I do get the ability of doing a checkout, just so you're aware that that feature is available here through a document library in Microsoft Teams. So it doesn't matter which channel you go to, every channel will have the ability of having these document libraries by going to the Files tab. But if you look at my list of my teams, I have my clinic because that was a SharePoint team site. I'm going to click vaccinations. And if I wanted to get into my legal documents, by the way, I can have a shortcut as a tab in my team channel. So I'm going to click legal documents from here, and it will take me directly to the document library for legal documents. So when people say it's hard to get to my document libraries, you can have a shortcut for it wherever you want it. So yes, there's quick, easy ways to get to it. So anyway, I'm back into that legal documents again, just so you could see that. And I'm going to jump back into Microsoft Teams here, because I just want to make sure that everybody has a good understanding as to the fact that, a team is created, it creates a SharePoint site. Every channel has its own document library. So when I go to Excel, and let me just kind of show you what I mean by that. If I go back into Excel and I go to my file menu and I want to open something, when I go to open, I'm going to have everything that is in my quick access available, or I could go to show more. And from show more, I can actually be navigating to wherever it is that I need to go. Here's my accounting department, but I can also go into, and let me show you this. I went into my open to my computer, and I can also access from here. Let me make this a little bit bigger here to show you this. So I'm actually in my OneDrive, but I want to get to a file in my legal documents. Maybe I didn't have it in my quick access. If I scroll down, here's my legal documents. Because this is a shortcut to OneDrive, I can access it directly through the application just by going to my OneDrive. Or of course, if I want to go to any of my other sites, I can access those as well, because we can have shortcuts to all of our different sites and be able to navigate to wherever it is we need to go. So anyway, just so you could see, I could open a file directly from here. So if I go to accounting department, here's that channel called accounts payable. So I opened up accounts payable, and here's all my Excel files, including that 2025 sales, just so you can kind of see how that all flows back to each other. So we don't have to be in one specific place to have access to our information. So pretty great that we have this. But back to using a document library here in Teams. Every time a team is created, of course, you're going to have your channels. You will have that Files tab, but you could always add another one. So if I needed to have two, technically I could add another one if I needed to. I could add it through my SharePoint. I could add it directly through here. Just so you know, we have multiple ways to, of course, do the same things. But let's talk about how OneDrive kind of fits in with all of this. So Teams and SharePoint both use document libraries that are housed in SharePoint sites. So they have a lot of similarities to each other, and any file within Teams can be utilized directly within SharePoint. But how does OneDrive fit in with all of this? Well, if I'm in Teams, on the left-hand side, I can go to OneDrive. From OneDrive, I have access to anything that I technically need, really, because what you're going to see is on the left-hand side, your navigation for your OneDrive. Right now, I'm on the home category. The right-hand side is showing me my recent files, even if they came from the accounting department, which is SharePoint document library. If it's coming from a SharePoint document library directly from this clinic site, here's that ABC sales. OneDrive doesn't care. It needs you to have access to your files. So from this home category, I can get into any of these other files. I can get into where it says my files. Those are physically files that are in OneDrive. Up at the top, I do have my recent files going across, or if I want to narrow it down and just see Word documents, Excel files, PDF files, whatever, I can just simply click to filter those out as well. But what if I just want my OneDrive files? I can go to the left-hand side under Home and click My Files. This is going to show me everything that's in OneDrive. Therefore, every folder, and I'm scrolling down on this list to show you, I got all these different columns of details, including this great column called sharing, because I can see if this is a private folder or if it's a shared folder. So we can share things directly from OneDrive. Now, of course, I'll show you how to do that in just a second, but I want to point out some of these folders actually have an arrow with a person. Legal documents. Legal documents is a shortcut that I added to OneDrive from my clinic SharePoint site, Legal Documents Document Library. That was a lot. But if we click legal documents, it's going to show me every file that I have in my legal documents. So I don't have to go to my SharePoint site, log into the internet, go to my SharePoint site, locate the sub-site that I need, and locate my document library. I can have access to it right here. So it's everything that you saw when I was in my clinic SharePoint document library. Here's that ABC files, ABC sales again. But I'm going to right click on this file and you can see what my choices are. So I'm not getting all of the same choices that I did when I was physically in SharePoint. So I'm not getting Alert Me. I'm not getting the capability of doing that workflow with that request sign off. Those things will not be available. But if I wanted to open this in SharePoint, I do have my open in SharePoint capability, just so you're aware. So wow, the connections that we have from SharePoint to Teams to OneDrive, it's fantastic because they're all cloud-based. And I can even access all of these on my phone, which I do all the time because I don't always carry my laptop or my computer with me when I go someplace. And if I need to quick add something or do something, I can do it right on my phone. So this to me has been a great addition and change to Microsoft Teams is to have this updated OneDrive. It used to say My Files, or it used to say Files, and it wasn't fully connected to OneDrive. It wasn't the same as the actual app. But let me just run through a couple of other things we have on the left-hand side. So if I go to Shared, it's going to give you up at the very top of this list, it's shared with you or by you. So you can filter the list depending on what exactly it is that you want to see. Also, you can filter by file type going across the top. On the left-hand side, you could just filter seeing the files that you have saved as a favorite, or you can go into the recycle bin. Every SharePoint site has a recycle bin. and your OneDrive has a recycle bin. As a matter of fact, if you go to delete a file, especially when I'm in File Explorer, we have to confirm that we want to delete that file for everybody. So there's a window that does pop up. But if I wanted to restore a file, all I have to do is select the file I want to restore, and I have my restore menu up at the top, or I could permanently delete it. Your IT department actually manages how long these files stay. 90 days is the default, just so you're aware. But other things that are really great on the left-hand side that I want to talk about is browsing files by people. So I can see files that I've recently been sharing or working with other people. We also have files based on meetings. So we have this direct connection to Teams meetings. So as you can see, when I go into meetings, on the right-hand side, these are my past meetings, and I could go directly into any of their recordings or any files that were shared during those meetings. So I don't have to go back to the meeting. I can do it right from here through OneDrive. And they can be files that are saved in Teams to the cloud in Teams, not technically a part of OneDrive. But OneDrive is so connected to everything else. And then we also have a media category as well that we can get into different images. But just to show you down below, we have quick access options. So anything that I had saved once again to that quick access, I can have them right here. So here's my clinic legal documents again. So I can get to those so many different places. Anyway, this is using OneDrive directly through Microsoft Teams, but OneDrive is also available through your Microsoft account. So if I come back to the internet and I go back to my Microsoft account where I originally had logged in, I could actually open the OneDrive app from here. So if I go to my apps launcher at the top left, I could just simply open OneDrive. A little slow, sorry about that. But once I open up OneDrive, you're going to see on the left-hand side, just like I saw when I was just in Microsoft Teams. So I never come here. Honestly, I never come to the internet to open my OneDrive. I'm in Teams all the time. And I can open it from other places as well because I can have a shortcut to it. But just so you know, this is what it looks like when you come into the OneDrive app. If I just want my files, I can go to my files on the left-hand side. If I have a file or a folder that I want to share with somebody, I can navigate directly to that file, and then I can right-click on it. I could do my typical sharing. Like I talked about earlier, we have access to that sharing capabilities, so we could do those same things in OneDrive. But OneDrive is called OneDrive because it's for you personally. It's like what we used to think we'd have to save things to our desktop because we knew nobody was going to have access to it. OneDrive is just yours. Nobody else has access to it. So if you decide you need to share a file from OneDrive, I want you to think about it for a minute, because think about, should it be someplace else? Depending on who you're sharing it with, maybe it should be in Teams. Maybe it should be in a shared channel, a channel that we share with somebody outside of our organization, or a private channel. Or should it be in SharePoint? Because as soon as I'm sharing it with one or more people, my thought process needs to be, should it be someplace else? So if it's just for you, keep it in OneDrive. Otherwise, look and see, should it go someplace else? But of course, you can see you do have that capability to share it if you needed to. And then they will have a link just to that file, not anything else in your OneDrive. So definitely secure. But as you can see on the left-hand side, I have all the same features that I showed you when I was directly in OneDrive through Teams. Okay. So anyway, I won't go through all of that anymore. I'm actually going to show you one other way that we can access our OneDrive files, and that's your File Explorer. I can directly go to File Explorer. I have both a personal and my business OneDrive, but if I'm on my business OneDrive, you're going to see exactly the same folders that I've been showing you through Teams OneDrive or through the OneDrive app. So once again, I'm going to scroll this just a little bit here, but you can see I have legal documents. So I have that same shortcut available through File Explorer. So just so you could see, if I open it, you're going to see exactly the same things that I saw if I went to my clinic SharePoint site and went to my document library called Legal Documents. Same thing. Okay. So I use either Teams, OneDrive, or I use File Explorer to get to my OneDrive files. But what you're going to find that's going to be different, let me go into a folder here. I'll just come into this Excel folder through my OneDrive. I'm going to go into this Excel just so you can see when you have these files. I'm going to right click on a file. You're not going to get the same choices as if you were in the OneDrive app. So when you right click on a file, here's going to be your menu. So you can see I could open this in SharePoint. I could view it online. I could go into the version history. I could do those types of things from here by going to this OneDrive, but I don't get the other capabilities like you would see. But there is something that I think would be very important for you to understand, and that's this feature called Always Keep on This Device. Let's say that I know that this evening I'm going to be doing some traveling and I'm not going to have an internet connection. I'm going to be sitting in an airport or wherever, and I don't have an internet connection. I could choose Always Keep on This Device so that this file will be synced to my local drive. It's still in OneDrive. It's still in its original cloud location, but it's temporarily being held in my local drive, so that when I'm not connected to the internet, I'm still going to be able to make changes to it. I can still save it. And as soon as I have an internet connection, it syncs back up. So it will automatically be available in my OneDrive, just so you know. But you don't want to do your entire OneDrive. You don't want to sync the entire thing because you're going to crash. It doesn't have the resources to really do that. So a habit, and I know everybody has habits, good habits, bad habits, but a habit you should have is go back to the file once you're connected to the internet again and remove it from being synced. So I'm going to right click on it again, and basically all I'm going to do is click Always Keep on This Device again. So just so you know, you want to kind of free that back up, free that space back up, so that that file is no longer available when you are offline. It's great to have that capability, and sometimes I'll do a small folder where I have multiple files in it, but most of the time it's just going to be a few files here and there that I'll need to have access to. But when you look at the status column, and let me kind of make the status column a little bit wider here so you can see it. But that's what the status column is letting you know. So when we hesitate on this, these icons are letting us know the status of those specific files. So available on the cloud, this one was synced, but now it's not anymore. So just so you can see what that means. But I love the fact that I can access these files and my SharePoint files directly here through File Explorer. But we can also do it directly through Teams. Or I could go back into my SharePoint site and have access to files from there as well. So it's going to depend on, where are you and what exactly is going to be the best practices for you. So for those of you that actually opened up the handout today, the handout does include everything that I've been talking about, including the OneDrive information, which that actually starts on page 12, where it talks about the fact that you can share those files. It's got the people view, the meeting view, those types of things. But I have mine set up so that when I go to Word, Excel, PowerPoint and stuff, my files save to my OneDrive by default. I like that because that's where I want them to be. I don't want them to, accidentally go to my C drive or something like that, because my OneDrive is available from any device. I just need to know my Microsoft account to be able to have access to it. If I have something on my hard drive, of course, I have to have my hard drive to get to it. So having things in a cloud, whether it's SharePoint, it's Teams, or OneDrive, is definitely a best practice that we should all have. So when it comes to, where should I save my files? If it's for you and you only, save it to your OneDrive. You can then have access to it from any internet connection, from your mobile device, those types of things. As long as you log in with your account, you'll have access to all of that. But if you want to share it with other people, think about who you're sharing it with to see if it would be best to have it put out on SharePoint, or is there a team it should be put into? Just kind of think about the best practices of doing that. So create your files from wherever you want to create them online, directly through a document library. When you go to the new category, you can create it from there. Go to your desktop app and create it. Then make sure you're choosing exactly where you want it to be saved. Make sure you pay attention to where it goes, because sometimes people forget where they were. And if you create something new, it can come back. And let me show you what I mean by this, because I think this is important to understand here. So if I'm in this clinic legal documents, whichever folder I'm in is where a new file would be saved. So if I go into contracts, which is a folder inside this document library, if I click new and create a new file, up at the top of the file, just so you can see this, I'll just create a new Word document here. If I go to the top of this file, once it opens everything up here, because it's got so much going on, sorry about that. Where it says document, I'm going to click in that to rename it. And I'm going to call this 2025 updates. As soon as I press my enter key, I can see that it was automatically saved. And it's actually being saved to the physical location of where I was within that document library. So we want to make sure that we're in the correct location. Not that we can't go back and move it, because we definitely can. But here's that Word document I just did. And by the way, just so you know, I can right click on it to move it. I can actually go to this Move To. It has a Move To option, and I can choose where I want to move it to. But it's a good idea, best practice to kind of think about, be in the right place first. But if I want to move it to my accounting department or someplace else, I can choose where I want it to go. As soon as I select it, I can click move here. So just so you can see that things can be moved around if they end up in the wrong place. I got to tell you though, I usually do that in File Explorer because I can easily drag and drop, because I can have multiple File Explorer windows open. So a lot of times I will work with it that way.